Comic book fans, this is H.H. German coming to you from the greatest city in the world. It's New York City, and this is Sigma Comics, Defenders of Animals, with our series Here Comes Calico, which is now available on Kickstarter, and you should get issue 8 of Here Comes Calico, the last issue, the final issue, the final double issue. This is issue 7 I'm holding up, all right, Escape from the Bronx. But issue 8 and the rest of the series, the entire series, is on Kickstarter right now. Get it. You're going to love it, and when you do, you're helping us in our fight against animal abuse. So remember, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, because when you do, you're helping us in our fight against animal abuse. Chuck Dixon, a legend in comic books. Before I get into that, I'm going to take a swig here of the Calico mug. Always good. Chuck Dixon. You know, as a kid growing up in the Bronx, I was a big fan of baseball. I'm Dominican, of course, so I have to love baseball. It runs in my blood. For those of you if you guys that don't know the history, why Dominicans love baseball so much. You know, we had a revolutionary sort of civil war situation back in the mid-60s in the Dominican Republic, and there was a dictator that was in charge, and the U.S. had a hand in getting rid of him. And during that process, some of the troops that were stationed out there were playing baseball. Because when you're fighting in a country, you don't just fight 24/7. You have a setup, and in the settlements, there's people doing all sorts of things that are part of their culture. And one of the things that was intrinsic in American culture was baseball. The guys getting together. Imagine, a bunch of fit guys in the '60s, that weren't out there that day, fighting or whatnot, or they had time and they just wanted, some of them had gloves and late teens. It was back in the day when you had people going into the war at 17, and whatnot, and they get married. It was mid '60s, right? So guys were playing baseball, okay, and Dominicans were watching these guys, and they started playing with these guys, learning how to play the game directly from these American soldiers, and that's how it started. The love really wasn't how it started 100%, because there were people playing even before then, but in terms of catching fire in the country, oh yeah, definitely that was it. The baseball really caught fire in the DR, the Dominican Republic, during that process, right? To the point where, following that, we started getting some just incredible legends like Juan Marichal back in the 60s and 70s, and of course in the 80s you had George Bell. I was a huge fan of George Bell, Toronto Blue Jays, and we had people like Pedro Martinez, right, in the late 80s, early 90s. And Manny Rodriguez, all these guys. What's this guy? A-Rod, Alex Rodriguez, right? All these incredible, Sammy Sosa, all those guys, Dominicans, right? Anyway, so growing up in the Bronx, of course, I'm going to be a fan of the Yankees, and we had a guy by the name of Don Mattingly. He's not Dominican, but we used to call him Donnie Baseball. And you know why? Because he was prolific. Donnie Baseball never missed a game. He was always consistent. And really, that's what it was. He never missed games, and he was consistent. Always had over a 300 batting average. You always counted on good glovemanship, good bat, and he was going to be there for the game. He was a clutch. He was consistent. Mr. Consistency. That's Donnie Baseball, which is why they gave him the name Donnie Baseball, because he was so intrinsic to the game. We call him Donnie Baseball. That's my sentiment with Chuck Dixon. Chuck Dixon is the most prolific comic book writer in history. All right, this guy is writing Batman. I think he's definitely the most Batman. He's definitely the most prolific Batman writer in history. I think he might even be in the Guinness Book of World Records. That's at least one character he's the most prolific on. But overall, yeah, this guy's. I don't think anyone can compete with Chuck on the amount of books that he's working on, and he's still working. This man listen, it's not just comics. He writes novels. Okay, the Levon. He's got a character there that he writes, Levon something or other. He's a very Punisher-esque character. Those of you familiar with Lee Childs, the writer, his work on a character, the Jack Reacher series, which is now, by the way, I think it's on Netflix or Amazon, one of those, Amazon Prime, one of those streaming services. I actually still haven't seen it, but I have all of the Jack Reacher books. I was reading Jack Reacher books since when Lee Child started writing them. I have all the digests, the paperbacks that you can get at pharmacies and whatnot, and bookshops. Certainly inspirational to me, Lee Childs, and as is Chuck Dixon and Mike Baron. So, when you read Here Comes Calico, those of you who are the big Calico fans out there, of course, all of you, if you pick up a Chuck Dixon book, you will definitely, his characters will remind you of someone who you know and love, and that's Hector Gill, the Calico. And that's precisely because Chuck Dixon has a very muscular style of writing. He typically writes very masculine characters that are, if not vigilantes, they're crime fighters that work outside. They color outside of the lines. Okay, so they're definitely not the typical good guys. They have some texture and grit to them, and those are certainly the characters that I love to read, which is why I'm a fan of Chuck Dixon, a big fan of Chuck Dixon. And I'm very, very happy that he's as prolific as he is, because we get to read more Chuck Dixon stories out there. And let me tell you, in terms of his body of work that I know of, I mean, he's written so many other things that I don't even know of, but I mainly know him on Batman, bunch of different Batman series. Chuck, in addition to an artist by the name of Grant, I'm forgetting his last name. I have it on the tip of my head, but I know his first name's Grant. They are both the creators of Bane, Punisher's, Batman's, one of Batman's great antagonists. I say the Punisher because really that's what I like Chuck most on is his work on the Punisher. But yeah, Chuck Dixon is the co-creator of Bane, and Bane is certainly a very powerful antagonistic force in the Batman storyline. Again, co-creator of Bane. Huge. He also wrote the Robin series, the straight Robin series. That was when I say straight Robin series, I just mean the the Robin series where it's just a mini series and it's just focused on his Robin storyline. I think it was back in the early '90s, and I actually have that series here somewhere. Chuck Dixon wrote that, did a fantastic job on that. He also worked on several Punisher series, one of which was I think it was called the Punisher. Warzone. Yeah, he worked on Warzone. He worked on Warzone with John Romita Jr. and he did a great job on that. Absolutely fantastic work. And this is someone who's a true legend. I appreciate and respect, and his work is out there right now. Do a search for Chuck Dixon on Google, and you're going to see a bunch of projects that he's associated with, and his Punisher work. Just between his Punisher work and Batman work alone, I mean, that'll give you a ton of reading. He does have his Levon novel series that you should check out as well. I forget the last name of the character, but his first name's Levon. I know. Novel. If you just type in Chuck Dixon Levon novel, I think that'll be enough to bring up the series, and you can get those, I'm pretty sure, on Amazon or your local bookstore. So do yourself a favor. You're going to love Chuck Dixon's work. Listen, if you're a fan of muscular writing, as I am, you're straight up hardcore, rough and tumble, characters, whether it's in a comic book or in a novel, you're going to love Chuck Dixon's work. Pick it up, give it a shot. You're going to love it. I'm sure most of you already know who he is. so you already know what I'm talking about. And if you do and you haven't picked up a Chuck Dixon book in a while, go ahead and on Indiegogo and or Kickstarter. You'll just by typing his name and comics or book or something, pretty sure his projects will show up. Or do it on Google and learn about them there, and then go on Kickstarter and find them that way if you can't find it on Kickstarter and Google. Some of these crowdfunding sites have problems with finding things, so it's probably better to do it on Google, learn about it, and then go on Kickstarter or Indiegogo and get them that way. So anyway, just want to say a few things about Chuck Dixon, because he really is an enormously talented writer, and he has been a great inspiration to a lot of creators, including myself, and you really should check him out. Head on over to his YouTube channel. It's a really good one. I always tune in. It's called Ask Chuck Dixon, and it's a wonderful channel. I learned so much from it. You will too if you're a creator, especially. Chuck Dixon, wonderful legend. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Head over to Chuck Dixon's Ask Chuck Dixon YouTube channel as well. Thank you for supporting our fight against animal abuse. Keep on fighting for animals.